This is Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Subscribe for new content notifications. Now, here's Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show. You guys can follow me at Twitter, at Backup Bradley, at Twitter above at the top of the screen. Good morning. It's early, but we got a lot of news to go over, so let's go ahead and get started. And before we get going here, I do want to let you know that we're going to skip around a little bit with the news, but we're going to finish with Judy Shelton, an article about the Fed not liking her, and we're going to just discuss that a little bit, and then we're going to hear from Chris Larson a bit as well. So let's go ahead and get going here. If you ever thought that crypto was not doing well because you're looking at price every day, think again. Grayscale launched 2 new crypto funds last week, a Litecoin and Bitcoin Cash Trust, with demand driving one of the funds to a staggering 1,000% premium. Sparking suggests some investors might be unaware they're paying above tokens market rate. Now, listen. First of all, shout out to Michael Val, 5 Links, XRP Crypto Wolf, DJ Peter Vass, Rod Hop. Thank you for the stuff you send, and everyone else who sends material our way. We really do appreciate it. You know, you have to understand that, this is a process. If you're focused on fundamentals, you constantly see the things, or at least I do. I know I do. I see the things that make me feel good about the fact that this is only going to get bigger. Let's keep going, because you're going to get an idea just about how big some of it can be. Jack Ma's Ant Group IPO is all set to become the biggest IPO event ever. The valuation of Alibaba's group offshoot is $225 billion, and the IPO will go live in both Shanghai and Hong Kong at the same time. Yeah, shout out to Jack Ma getting it done. And just to let you know, Ant Group is a giant payments company, in the payment sector. So handling stuff for Alibaba and many, many other platforms. If you remember, I believe it was Ant Group that actually wanted to buy MoneyGram originally and was turned down by the U.S. government. And then Ripple came in and partnered with MoneyGram. So this will be interesting to see how this develops, knowing that they're in the payments sector and widely. So let's see where we go from there. Now, just looking at the IPOs, Ripple Labs, Inc. at the SEC IPO watch, nothing new to report this morning as of yet, but we will keep an eye on that. I do expect to see at some point Ripple handle an IPO. The question is will they do a direct listing of that IPO, which would be interesting. Okay. Now, as we can all imagine, after the recent news from Jerome Powell from the Fed saying he's going to let inflation run hot, which is interesting, as if he had a choice, of course he could have raised interest rates, but that would have just caused just an absolute screeching halt that's even worse than what has happened from the deliberate shutdown. But nevertheless, as you can imagine, Federal Reserve action to propel gold and silver prices. I also believe that is going to accelerate crypto over time as well, because as Cryptopolis pointed out here on Friday's show, you have the use case of cryptocurrency. So, it can be spendable, and it's a great medium of exchange to person and business to person. So as the market infrastructure is developed and gets more regulatory clarity, and I feel like clarity is the word more than more regulation, I think that will accelerate a move from people's money in traditional places like stocks and into metals and crypto. So that's going to be another, I think, accelerant to how bad things get and how quickly they get bad. So, all right, let's keep this moving. Remember, Brad Garlinghouse had said, too, on the remarks of Jerome Powell statements about the inflation running hot, Brad Garlinghouse also said the Federal Reserve inflation action flies in the face of decades of precedent. Signs point to further U.S. dollar debasement or devaluing in the near term, leading to further diversification of assets, which will certainly be good for crypto. Obviously, I echo the sentiment right there. Another one from Michael Val, 5 Links. The question centered around whether crypto earned by an individual performing a micro task through crowdsourcing or similar platform was taxable income. Yes. IRS senior technician reviewer and memo author Ronald Goldstein said. And listen, like it or not, they have, whether you believe you should be taxed or not, whether you believe XRP is a security, a commodity, or a currency, as I do, the reality is, if any of this is going to take off like a rocket, they've got to have the tax structure figured out. It's just not practical to think that, they don't have any tax structure, but we're all going to the moon and it's going to be great and this, that, and the other. People's knee-jerk reaction to that, I know, would be like, well, we had a bull run in 2017 and we didn't have tax structure figured out then. He was like, yeah, actually we did. You had to pay cap gains on it if you pulled it out. And what I'm trying to say is that I just want to see a more refined and more defined structure of this tax platform or tax framework for cryptocurrencies, because I don't believe all of them are the same, and I don't believe it should be a broad brush for all cryptos, because many of them are different. So hopefully we are seeing that kind of clarity begin to emerge. We'll keep an eye on that. Now, the big part I wanted to get into here is the Federal Reserve versus Judy, Shelton, and gold. Now, this is really a great article. I'm not going to read the whole thing, so you can breathe a sigh of relief, but I will tell you a letter published and signed by former Federal Reserve officials and staffers called on the Senate to reject her nomination, stating that Mrs. Shelton's views are so extreme and ill-considered as to be an unnecessary distraction from the task at hand. Having her in here will just keep us from doing our job. And that is because Mrs. Shelton has decade-long record of writing statements that call into question her fitness for the spot on the federal board of governors. This is followed by a citation of specific issues. She's advocated for a return to the gold standard. She has questioned the need for federal deposit insurance. She has even questioned the need for a central bank at all. How dare you, Judy? This is interesting because, look, the reality is the reason they don't want her, and the article goes well into this, so I'm going to just save you the time. But the article goes into this point because they know if they were to return to any kind of a gold standard or measure, that it would limit their ability to print money. And they don't want to be handcuffed. And I want them to be handcuffed, right? I think a lot of us probably wanted to be handcuffed and probably hauled off to jail, let alone just be back on a gold standard. I mean, it's the interesting part to this, if you're not aware, Judy Shelton's proposal as far back as 2017, I believe it was, at the Jack Kemp conference. She broke down her idea of a gold standard, and it could be done in a cryptocurrency way, as she has suggested. And now I'm going to just loosely put it together and paraphrase some of it, so it's word for word, no. But this is basically essentially what she's talking about doing, is introducing a new gold bond that would be created to back the major currencies around the world. That gold bond could be, let's say, a 5-year term, which is redeemable either for the cash of the currency you bought it in, or a gold redeemable by gold, physical gold. The reason for that is because this would help, in her mind, keep a level playing field of currency manipulation. Because if I buy a bond over in China, and in 5 years when it matures, and I go to get the redeeming factor of that, I can choose the gold if they've manipulated the currency outside of my favor. And this really makes it so, if the country wants to manipulate their currency, they can. But at that point, you're really talking about the country manipulating their currency, and it affects the citizens within their borders. Because if you were to, and she does talk about a neutral reference point, using gold as that term of neutral reference point. I expand on that idea and add XRP as that neutral reference point to exchange all of this, whether it's currency to currency or currency to gold or whatever it is. And I think you really have a pretty solid system, because at the end of the day, it says, hey, you want to print more money in your country? It's only going to affect your citizens within your borders. So knock yourself out, because anybody buying a bond to do business with you in your country is able to redeem gold from it. And if you were to use something like XRP that sits in the middle of that to settle all of these transactions for all of the money, I think you really have something that could be, potentially world changing, for going forward. So with that being said, I think you have to look at, what makes that work. Well, what makes that work is a CBDC system. I think you need to have a central bank digital currency that works in this system, like, to work in tandem with settlement with XRP and to be on new digital financial rails instead of the traditional payment rails that are existing now. I think if you think of these things, you start asking yourself, well, do we have the infrastructure? And I think we do. I think people often forget that, the XRP ledger is a decentralized exchange. And, in working with the interledger protocol, you really can make it so interoperable that it can work with anything. So at the end of the day, I look at what does it take to really implement Judy Shelton's ideas? And what it takes is market infrastructure. And who else has been working and playing the long game as well as Ripple has? And I don't think anyone. The market infrastructure, the partnerships, the companies, the banks, the financial institutions, the regulators. This is all a part of developing the market infrastructure. Who has more relationships and deeper relationships, working relationships with all of these different areas and entities? No one in my understanding of this space. So what we really need now is a tipping point. And let's just look right here. Standardization, this is from European Central Bank. Standardization protocols, public infrastructure need to support cross-border interconnections and aspects especially important in the EU single market. There's also a need for a level playing field and data standards between banks and non-banks. I'm pretty sure I just got done describing this. And now you're hearing it from the European Central Bank, right? So shout out to Christine Lagarde at the ECB. So, when you think of that, here's a great clip from Chris Larson laying down exactly this understanding and idea, and it lets you know that this has been Ripple's plan all along. So listen to this really quickly.
But there's that missing layer of what is the IP, what is the shipping container that's going to wire them all together. And that's the part, thankfully, that's being introduced. Now, when you combine then those new apps, those new devices, those new databases with an interoperability layer, boom. I mean, that changes the world overnight. And I think we're so close to that. And that will create this Cambrian explosion of, some of the companies here that will suddenly have this global platform to be working on, which will make fintech so much easier. Everybody in fintech knows how difficult it is just within a country, let alone to try to go global. That is all about to change, and that's great for everybody. But there's that.
And there you have it. I mean, I don't think you could say it any better than Chris Larson said it right there. Shout out to him and everything that everyone is doing at Ripple. I covered a PDF from Deloitte. I believe it was back in either 2012, 2015, something in that time frame, very early, years ago. And they said it best, and I'm paraphrasing, but this is exactly what they were getting to. What is needed is it's a new tipping point where the largest players in the cross-border sectors around the world, and this is exactly what they said, can force their will upon the world by a majority and basically mandate the use of cryptocurrency. I believe the cryptocurrency they were actually talking about was XRP. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe, share with somebody you know. I also want to thank each and every one of you for coming to this channel every day, watching the views, supporting us here. It is amazing. Don't forget to check out the links in the description box and the links in the comment box. There's a lot of deals for you guys should you need them. And if you don't, that's fine too, but they're there if you do. And I want to thank all of you because we just crossed 25,000 subscribers, and I couldn't be happier with what we're all doing together and that we're on this journey together. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe, leave a comment below. I'll catch you all on the next one.